So you can use the different multi-band compressors that you can get from like Waves and other brands as well that you can purchase paid for ones. But this one is actually powerful, so it's a good way to actually start getting into multi-band compression for mastering, and you can even use it for mixing as well. So the difference between the normal compressor, this one, and the multi-band compressor is that the normal fruity compressor only affects the whole frequency spectrum, like every frequency that's in the signal that you're feeding into it. But the multi-band compressor, you only applies to certain frequencies, so you can actually choose. So you have 3 bands over here. You have a low band, you have a mid band, and you have a high band. But this fruity compressor compresses everything in the frequency spectrum. So when you adding this compression, you're compressing all the frequencies in your master. But if you want to cut out things like muddiness, or you just want to do like really in-depth compression or toning of a certain sound, when you use multi-band compression, it will allow you not to even do volume attenuation or even use an EQ, because I know a lot of us tend to want to rush to EQs when we feel like something is too high in the mid-range or stuff like that. But if you use multi-band compression, you can be able to actually achieve this without loading in so many plugins. So what happens with this multi-band compression is that by default, it already has these 3 compressors that you can see, the high band, mid band, and low band, already set. So what you can do is that you can just lower or raise the threshold to 0 so that it's not doing anything. So right now it's not doing anything. But if I start lowering the threshold, you can see the red line, that's red indicator, the red line that's coming up. That's how you know that it's now, your signal is being affected by the compression. So as soon as you see this red line coming up, the red spike or on the display coming up, then you know it's working. So what you just have to do is that if you feel like your track has a lot of muddiness in the mid-range, or you feel like you have a lot of instruments and it feels like your mid-range is not really sounding nice, usually people would go to your mixing and then you lower all your sounds down or you EQ it. But if you use multi-band compression, you are able to actually tone your track nicely without really destroying the tonal value of all those individual instruments. So like, let me show you, for instance, if I start to affect the mid-range alone, and I'm gonna overdo this so that you guys can understand just how it works. So you can see what it's doing. So you can add compression just to the mid-range only, and you can control how much of the compression with a ratio. And you also have a gain if you want to increase it, or if you want to lower it. The makeup gain, and you also have your attack, and your release, and your knee. Basic controls that you'll find on a normal compressor. And another thing is that you can select exactly which bands you're gonna affect, like especially on the low end side. Like maybe if you wanna play around with your low end and give it a little bit of boost and make it real nice and tight, you can actually just do this. Then maybe lower your mid-range. So the more you increase the gain, the more you're increasing that one frequency. And then you can select exactly which frequency is being affected over here by these knobs over here, by these switches. So if you move it to the right, you are adding more mid-range, and if you move it to the left, it's like a low pass filter, and this is more or less like a high pass filter. So you're basically choosing which frequencies are going to be affected by what you're doing in the low band. So if I do this, you can see that it actually cut out all the bass. But if I start to raise it, it starts to bring up the bass line, and now start to bring up the mid-range all the way up. if I just want just the section of my bass, then that's fine. Then maybe I can just bring back my mid-range so that they meet in the middle over there. And the same thing with your high end as well. If you feel like your high end is too much, you want to give it a little bit of compression just to control it and control the peaks a little bit. You can do the same. And what's nice is that you have your input and you have your compression, so you can see exactly how much of the compression versus your input signal are being affected. So if you want more of the compression to, the compression to be over the input, you can do that and you can see it. But if you just want to add a little bit of the compression, then just make sure that your signal for your compression is not going too high, like higher more than the input gain. Like what you can see over here, you can see that that's higher. So you just have to, lower it so that it's a little bit lower, and even here on the bass as well. Lower the gain because I think that was too much. You can see here it's also compressing, and you can actually just choose which frequency the highs are, just like that. And another thing is that you can actually solo and just listen to the one band. You can bypass all the other bands. And then now I just only have the high band only, just so I can fine tune exactly which of the highs are being affected by this compression. I can mute that, and then I can go also to the low end. So that I can fine tune that. And then I can maybe add the mid-range. Mute it on its own. If I feel like it's got too much of the high end in, I can pull it back. Too much of the bass in, I can pull it back as well, so that it's mid-range only. Then if I bring it back, then everything comes back. So that's how basically that works. So remember, there's no rules to this. So what sounds good for you is okay, but you don't want to overdo the compression and end up having a really over compressed signal or over compressed master. And what's nice about this multi-band compressor is that it has a limiter. So if you start adding all these signals, like you see right now, I'm actually going above 0. I was going above 0. Let me just exaggerate this. So I go above 0. You can actually turn on the limiter. As you can see, it's actually limiting my signal so that it doesn't go above 0 dB. And you also have another gain over here that you can actually use that controls the basic loudness of everything that is happening in this plugin. So it affects everything that is happening. So you can add more gain if you feel like you still need another boost of gain without increasing the gain of each band. If you feel like you have it set in a nice sweet spot for every band that you have, you can just increase the gain. That will increase the volume of everything. And then you just make sure that your limiter is on so that you're not clipping. So that's a good thing that this multi-band compressor does. So, you can start understanding multi-band compression by using this multi-band compressor, and then maybe you can move to, more paid plugins and more advanced multi-band compressors like from Waves, and then you can get to have much more complex mastering workflows and stuff like that. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys, because I've heard a lot of tracks from you guys from the feedback sessions that we did, and some of the tracks are too over compressed. And I think this is the problem that you get when you just use just the normal fruity compressor on your master. You just master only you just master the whole wave, and then you end up over compressing. But sometimes some frequencies don't need that much compression. Like sometimes your highs need to be loose so they can play around, and sometimes your bass doesn't need all that compression. But this is exactly how you can get a nice master. So if you found this really helpful, drop me a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I have a lot of great content, and I want to thank everybody that's a member, that's supporting this channel. If you want to be a member of the channel, you can click the join button below and you can become a member and help me keep making content for you guys, and so I can make it for free and all that type of stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to share this with other producers. I'll check you guys out in my next video. I am X, and I'm out. Peace.